All right, now we're going to look at slide number 4, instructional techniques. The first technique, and probably the most common technique, is the lecture method. And there's two basic types of lectures, the formal and informal. The formal is where you'll be standing somewhere in a position where your students are seated around you in desks and chairs, and you have your notes and your lecture paraphernalia ready, and you just sit there and deliver all that good information that you have for them. And they sit down and listen, take notes, ask questions. You give answers, you ask questions, they give answers. And it is in a very formal, structured setting. Opposite of that, for the informal, is where you might decide it's such a beautiful day outside that you're going to take your class out underneath a tree and have a lecture and present some information to them. One of my first year, during my first year of teaching, I decided one day to do just that. Didn't make my principal too happy, but it was a great time. Students were outside. It was just a gorgeous day, and had one of the better lessons that I've ever taught out there, because it wasn't where they normally were. He didn't exactly encourage me to do that from then on, but it kind of broke the monotony. And what was important, students got the information. And you don't have to have a lecture hall or a classroom setting to be able to deliver some good information. An informal setting will do just as well. Try it. You never know what might happen. But let your principal know, or let your administrator know that you might try that and see what happens. The next instructional technique that's used quite a bit is the guided discussion method. Now, let's just kind of qualify what we mean by guided. You are in control, and you're trying to keep this group of students focused on the discussion that you've got going on, because there's a very, very serious situation that can take place in a discussion method where it gets out of hand real quick. People are talking about everything but what you want them to know. And so you have to kind of stay on top of it, and the guided method is a good way to get it done, because you take time to introduce the subject. This is what we're talking about, and lay out the parameters about that, and background information, whatever it takes. Then y'all start talking about this. Many times my students were just as dead as stones. You want to get a discussion going, and then all you hear is silence. And it's usually 2 or 3 students that love to run their mouths about all kinds of things. They love to hear themselves talk. They kind of dominate the conversation, and that's not what you want. You want everybody to be involved. I just never was comfortable with the discussion method, because I just don't have what it takes to be able to guide that discussion where I want it to go. And I've watched teachers that do, and it is just wonderful how they have those students engaged and really want to get into depth on some stuff. And if you can do it, go for it. But then you bring them to a conclusion where you decide about about some things. This is how it is. What have we learned? Because you want to take them from that point and build on what you've discussed and apply it. And so it's a risky kind of way to teach, but there are some I guess academic classes that maybe in the arts, in the liberal arts, that this is a very, very appropriate way to teach. In vocational education, why not? You can discuss all kinds of things, especially like about cars and diesel engines and machine shop, drafting, nursing. You can use it, but then again, understand that you need to keep it focused. Next slide talks about, I guess, the most common vocational type of teaching technique, and that's demonstration, where you're showing your students how to do something. There were times where, when I taught drafting, I had to demonstrate to them, this is how you hold a pencil, this is how you pull a line across a sheet of paper, this is how you set up your paper, this is how you center your drawing. And I would demonstrate it, they would do it. Sometimes I'd have to demonstrate it again, they would do it. In fact, today our nurses were doing, or our PCTs were doing some sticks, and I had passed in the hall and heard one of the instructors saying, or basically giving a demonstration of how to put all the alcohol and keep where they were going to stick you sterile and all of that, and that was what they had to do every time they'd stick somebody to draw blood. So we use demonstrations all the time. Some things that maybe you ought to remember. Make sure you've got everything you need to do the demonstration. All of the equipment, all of the supplies, everything. Have that set up up front, because you don't want to be doing a demonstration and when you need a piece or need a piece of equipment, you don't have it. And it kind of gets uncomfortable when you got to send a student to go get the thing, or else if you're like me, you can't find it. So save yourself some embarrassment. A little work up front, like the day before you need to do a demonstration. Do a dry run if you can, if you have the time. Then that'll give you some confidence that you've got everything that you need in one spot. You can do it, get it done, nail it, and then let the students work on it. The performance method is something that's used very often in many of our vocational labs. Is them being able to do what they need to do to perform. What comes to mind is welding. I took a welding class in college. One of the things we had to do was to lay some groove welds, and we'd sit down with our welding rods and we'd weld away. But the way that the teacher determined whether or not we did it right was to take that piece of two pieces of metal, stick it in a press, and just put the pressure on it, and it had to not break before a certain number of pounds per square inch, 2,000 pounds. So it had to hold. If it broke before that, Go back and do it again. You got to perform. It's very similar to what any welder that's on the job has to do. They want to work in a plant. They'll be tested. They'll have to perform. And many of our students can get it done to perform those skills that they're training for, and works very, very well. Individualized instruction. This is something that very near and dear to my heart. And I guess what we're doing right now is kind of a takeoff on it, but I was trained in the classical lecture demonstration mode of teaching in college. That's how I was prepared. When I went to teach in high schools, that's what I did. I lectured some days, demonstrated some other days, and some other days students just drew. It was all laid out. Well, when I got to work in the technical college system, things changed big time. Where a student could walk in one day and begin the program, and another student on another day would be completing. Everybody was at different levels. And so I learned very quickly to lay out the whole program from start to finish, with all of the units of instruction, all of the exercises that student had to do, everything laid out, mapped out, and then that student would start on lesson 1 and work their way through it. I found myself doing 50, 60 different little short mini lessons with every different student wherever they were, and I had a very, 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 very difficult time adapting to that method of teaching. It took me about a year, but the students loved it because they could see that they could move forward in the program at their own pace. Some learned faster than others, and it forced me to look at the program as a whole rather than just lecturing on this topic one day, demonstrating it the next day, and then doing something else the following day. Every student was at one point within the course, and I found it was, once I got it, it was just a wonderful, wonderful way to teach. And I think it has a lot of merit even today. I'd like to see us really go back and do a lot of this. So my time is running real short right now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right here and go ahead and upload this and see if we can get part 3 done.